Welcome to the deep dive. So, today our mission is to unpack a really fiercely argued opinion piece. It's titled Taxation Without Destination.
Yeah, it's a fascinating read.
It really is. It takes this hard, uncompromising look at the hidden math and, well, kind of the underlying philosophy behind how local taxes and municipal budgets are actually structured.
Right, and how massive civic projects get funded.
Exactly. And the source uses Colorado Springs as a case study, but, and I want to stress this to you listening, the financial dynamics we're going to explore, they apply to almost any local government or voting district in the country.
Oh, absolutely. But before we get into the weeds here, we really need to put a clear disclaimer on the table.
Good point. Yeah.
Because this source material contains some very strong, highly politically charged critiques of local taxation. And it goes hard on government spending and bureaucratic regulation.
Yes. And we want to be perfectly clear with you. We are not endorsing these viewpoints.
Not at all.
Right. We are absolutely not taking a side on the politics here. We are strictly acting as your guides just to impartially break down the arguments and the sheer math presented in this text.
Yeah, the goal is just to help you understand how this system functions mechanically so you can, evaluate the logic for yourself.
Exactly. So, to start, I want you to imagine you just walked into your favorite neighborhood bar. You're settling in, taking your coat off, and suddenly the local school district walks in and says, "Hey, drinks are on me. I'm buying a round."
Sounds like a great night so far.
Right. And then, a few minutes later, the Regional Transit Authority strolls in, slaps the bar, and says, "Next round is on me."
Okay, even better.
And they turn to you, smile, and ask you to chip in what sounds like a completely trivial amount, like the price of a cheap whiskey, maybe just a few bucks a month.
Seems totally reasonable.
It sounds like a great night out. But here is the massive hidden problem. The bartender is the only person in the entire room actually adding up the total tab.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And at the end of the night, that tab is being handed directly to you.
What's fascinating here is the core issue being diagnosed, which is this concept of siloed bureaucracy.
Right, the silos.
Yeah, in modern local government, these entities operate in completely isolated silos. The school district measures schools. The transit authority measures trains.
The water district measures pipes.
Exactly. Every single entity essentially grades its own paper, gives itself a blue ribbon for a job well done, and then sends you a bill.
But they never actually talk to each other, do they?
No, they never coordinate those asks. They never look at the cumulative burden.
Okay, let's unpack this by looking at the first specific drink on this metaphorical bar tab. It's the biggest and most immediate ask in this community, which is a massive school district bond, specifically School District 11.
Right, the D11 bond.
Now, the sales pitch for this bond sounds, frankly, entirely painless. The district is asking for a staggering $775 million. But the way it's pitched to the public, it's just $6.50 a month per $100,000 of your home's assessed value.
Yeah, it's deliberately framed as the price of a fancy coffee.
Right.
It sounds like a manageable, almost unnoticeable monthly subscription to just, get better schools.
But I have to play devil's advocate for a second here, because if you're building or renovating massive infrastructure like a school, isn't a 30-year bond just standard operating procedure?
Well,
I mean, when I bought my house, I took out a 30-year mortgage. Why is it inherently reckless for a city to use that exact same financial instrument?
it's a fair question, but it comes down to the fundamental difference between a municipal bond and a private mortgage.
Okay, how so?
Specifically, it's about what happens to the underlying asset. A house generally appreciates in value,
Right, ideally.
and a family intends to live in it for decades. But when a municipality uses a third-year bond to fund things like HVAC systems, new windows, or tech upgrades for schools,
Oh, I see.
yeah, they're financing depreciating assets over a timeline that far outlasts the useful life of those materials. I mean, HVAC system doesn't last 30 years.
So they're paying for stuff long after it's broken or replaced.
Exactly. The real reason districts use 30-year terms isn't because it's good finance. It's because stretching it out lowers the monthly impact on that bar tab.
Making it much easier to swallow on election day.
Precisely.
Which brings up this analogy from the text that perfectly counters the logic of this bond. The author compares it to financing a minivan during your kids' club swim team years.
Oh, this is such a good comparison.
If you've ever had kids in heavy extracurriculars, you know the drill. You buy the big, expensive van to haul the gear, the teammates, the wet towels.
Right. You need the space.
But if you take out a 30-year loan on that minivan, what actually happens? The kids grow up, They move out.
Yeah.
The van is just sitting empty in the driveway. Maybe it barely even runs anymore, but that monthly payment just keeps ticking.
And the math backing up that minivan analogy is frankly staggering.
Hit me with the numbers.
Okay, so to get that $775 million for the building, stretching it out over 30 years, means the total payment from the taxpayers will be $1.6 billion.
Wait, 1.6 billion?
Yes. The interest alone, just the interest paid to the bondholders, is $800 million, $25,000.
You're kidding.
Nope. The interest actually costs more than the physical buildings themselves.
That is just a...
Well, that assumption expires long before the loan does. They've had to close buildings before due to low enrollment, and they will likely have to close more.
But the debt on those closed buildings remains. So how does the district justify putting taxpayers on the hook for 3 decades when the enrollment is actually shrinking?
They use this philosophical defense called intergenerational equity.
Intergenerational equity. Okay.
Yeah, and this raises an important question. The district's defense is that a kid sitting in a newly renovated classroom in the year 2050 is getting a benefit from this bond.
So they should pay for it.
Right, so they, as future taxpayers, should help retire the debt. It spreads the cost across the generations who actually use the facility.
Which, again, sounds totally fair on the surface. If I'm using a facility in 2050, I should pay for it in 2050.
But that premise collapses when you look at the enrollment trends. What if those aging, under-enrolled buildings are shuttered by 2035?
Oh, wow.
If that happens, the 2050 taxpayer, your grandchildren, basically are co-signers on a loan for a benefit they never actually received.
They're literally paying for a closed, empty building.
Exactly. It's paying for the swim team carpool long after the kids have retired from swimming.
Okay, so it's one thing when a tax has an expiration date, even a long 30-year one, but this pass-the-buck mentality becomes much more alarming when a municipality introduces a tax that never ends.
Oh, the forever taxes.
Right, which brings us to the second item on the bar tab, the regional rail district.
Right, because not everything is a debated bond measure. The commuter train is a fundamentally different type of ask.
How so?
The Transit Authority is asking for 1/3% tax on nearly everything purchased for everyone living within 5 miles of a station. That amounts to roughly $295 million a year.
Yeah.
But here's the kicker. It's in perpetuity. Forever.
Forever. And here's where it gets really interesting, because the funding structure for this train highlights a massive regional discrepancy.
Oh, yeah. If you look at the regional map for this project, the starter service for this rail line, the northern section running from Denver to Fort Collins, is being built without any new taxes.
Wait, no new taxes for the North?
None. It's being funded by old, existing transit money that was set aside years ago for projects that never actually materialized.
So the northern region gets their train using money they already paid into the system.
Exactly.
Meanwhile, the southern region gets hit with a brand new forever tax to fund their leg of the journey, and the return on investment is abysmal.
Yeah, the local mayor even admitted that for every dollar sent up to Denver's unelected transit body, the city only gets 16 cents back.
16 cents.
Which is exactly how regional transit authorities consolidate power. They pull revenue from a massive geographic radius. But the actual infrastructure spending, the jobs, the stations, the economic benefits,
they all go to the city.
Right, it tends to centralize in the urban core. The suburbs are subsidizing the city center.
And what makes that 16-cent return even harder to swallow is the stated purpose of the train itself. The text humorously dubs this the fun bus.
The fun bus. I love that.
And that's not just a witty exaggeration. The district director actually admitted in public that this train is not primarily designed for daily commuters going to work or school.
No, it's for entertainment.
Right. It's designed for going to ball games, making college visits, or catching an evening show in Denver.
Which is wild.
Look, anyone who commutes knows the struggle of sitting in rush hour traffic. But subsidizing a multi-million-dollar perpetual public tax so people can skip traffic on their way to a weekend football game, that's a luxury, not essential infrastructure.
And to add insult to injury, state agencies have already spent $6 million of taxpayer money just on pre-ballot outreach.
Which is just bureaucratic speak for a sales pitch.
Exactly.
They took $6 million of public money just to convince the public to give them more money.
It's unbelievable.
So we have the finite but massive school bond and the infinite commuter tax. But there is a third silo on this bar tab, and it's the one you never actually see on Election Day.
The invisible tax of government regulation.
Yeah.
A recent study published by Home Builders reveals a staggering statistic. Government regulation at various levels adds $130,000 to the cost of an average new house.
$130,000. It feels exactly like booking a cheap hotel online, only to arrive at the front desk and get hit with mandatory resort fees, parking fees, and facility fees that literally double the price of the room.
That is a perfect way to look at it.
Because you never voted for them, they weren't in the advertised price, but you absolutely cannot get the room keys without paying them.
Right, because nobody campaigned for that $130,000 figure. There were no yard signs promoting a hidden fee on homeownership.
So how does that number get so high?
It's not one single giant bill. It's 1,000 bureaucratic paper cuts.
Okay, like what?
Well, it's the city council mandating a specific, highly expensive type of energy-efficient window. It's the zoning board demanding wider property setbacks, which means the builder has to buy more land for the exact same size house.
Oh, wow.
And most impactfully, it's the permitting office taking 6 to 8 months just to approve a blueprint.
Right, because during those 6 months of waiting for a rubber stamp, the builder is paying massive interest on their commercial construction loan.
Exactly. And every single cent of those holding costs, those material mandates, and those zoning fees gets passed directly into the final price of the house.
It just quietly and visibly inflates the bar tab.
Yeah, and it ends up pricing working families entirely out of the market. I mean, at least a tax measure has the manners to ask for your permission on a ballot. Regulation just takes it.
So what does this all mean? We have diagnosed the disease, we have disjointed silo schools, trains, regulatory boards, all pushing their own independent agendas, all adding to the total cost of living.
With no central oversight asking if the community can actually afford all of this simultaneously.
It truly is taxation without destination. But how do we fix it? The text actually offers a concrete vision of what healthy, coordinated civic planning should look like.
It introduces this concept called the yardstick.
Yardstick.
Yeah, the solution is to force all these independent, isolated silos to compete against a single, unified municipal goal.
The hypothetical given is brilliant. What if the city collectively decided that its ultimate destination, its singular defining goal, was simply to become the safest city in America?
Right. And if you establish safety as your yardstick, then every single tax, fee, bond, and regulation has to answer one vital question before it ever reaches a ballot.
Which is?
Does this move us closer to being the safest city? And does it do it better than the next thing the same money could have bought?
And I really appreciate how the definition of safety is expanded here, because usually your mind immediately goes to, okay, we need to hire more police officers, buy more patrol cars.
But it goes so much deeper than that.
Yeah.
A road with a dangerous intersection that causes fatal accidents is not safe. A fourth grader who cannot read is highly unlikely to be a safe, stable, productive citizen when they are 30 years old.
Right.
The concept of safest forces holistic thinking.
It forces the debate. The school district, D11, could absolutely stand up and argue that spending $775 million on secure entryways, modern classrooms, and better facilities makes children safer.
But the yardstick forces the comparison. It breaks down the silos.
Exactly.
D11 would have to stand in front of the taxpayers and prove that their $775 million of school upgrades buys more actual measurable safety than using that exact same money to pave 6,400 miles of dangerous roads or, to fund early childhood reading programs.
Right now, nobody makes anybody do that comparison. The silos just present their bills in a vacuum.
Yeah.
Compared to what? It really is the ultimate economic question. And to prove that this isn't just about being a chronic no voter who hates all public spending, the source points to a real-world example of what a good tax looks like.
A project that gets enthusiastic support with no asterisk attached.
And that project is a proposed data center at an old abandoned Intel plant.
Specifically, this is a brownfield site.
Explain that for a second.
Sure. For those unfamiliar, a brownfield site is a property that has been sitting empty and abandoned, usually because it has potential hazardous pollutants, industrial waste, or massive outdated infrastructure that makes it incredibly expensive and difficult to redevelop.
And this specific plant has produced absolutely nothing for 20 years.
20 years. Nothing.
So why is this project heralded as a massive win while the school bond and the train are rejected?
Because of the math. And specifically, the complete lack of a burden on the average citizen. It's the concept of the round that buys itself.
I love that phrase.
According to the planning grade estimates, clearing this brownfield and bringing this massive data center in would generate roughly $115 million in a one-time use tax.
Wow.
Plus, it would generate $6 to $8 million a year, every single year, indefinitely.
And where does that windfall go? The text says the funds are earmarked for COPS, TOPS, and POTS.
Right, which are dedicated municipal funds for essential city services. COPS stands for Police and Public Safety Funding. TOPS is for trails, open spaces, and parks. And POTS is dedicated strictly to infrastructure and filling potholes.
These are universally beneficial city services. But the most crucial detail here is that the individual taxpayer's tab doesn't go up by a single cent.
Not a dime.
A corporate entity is essentially walking into the bar, cleaning up a mess nobody else wanted to touch, and setting a massive stack of money on the counter to fund the police, the parks, and the roads, all without asking you for a single dime.
It's the exact inverse of the siloed bureaucracy we just talked about.
It really is.
But there is a stark warning attached to this windfall. It's framed as the wedding versus the marriage.
Okay, the wedding versus the marriage. The $115 million one-time check, that's the wedding.
Right.
The $6 to $8 million a year in ongoing revenue, that's the marriage.
And throwing a wedding is the easiest mistake a local government can make.
Oh, for sure.
They take that massive $115 million check, and instead of treating it as a rare foundational asset, they spend it all immediately on current operations or plugging short-term budget gaps.
We're throwing it at flashy, temporary projects.
Exactly. They take some nice photographs, the money vanishes in a single budget cycle, and next year, the city is right back at the bar, broke, asking the taxpayers for another round.
So to avoid that trap, the proposal is to create what is called the Taurus Endowment.
The mechanics of this are vital. You take that one-time windfall of $115 million, you lock it away in an investment trust, and you let the interest generate a perpetual yield.
You turn a one-time check into forever money.
Yes, you prioritize the long-term health of the marriage over the instant gratification of a one-day wedding party.
Which brings us to the ultimate verdict on the current ballot measures. After laying out all this logic, the minivan, the fun bus, the yardstick, the endowment, the conclusion on the massive D11 school bond is a hard, unequivocal no.
And it is absolutely vital to understand why it's a no.
Right, it's not anti-school.
Exactly. It is not because the schools don't need maintenance or upgrades. No is because borrowing money for 30 years based on the wildly uncertain educational and demographic landscape of the year 2040 is inherently reckless.
Yeah.
When the future is that uncertain, you don't double down and guess harder with a 30-year note. Uncertainty is an argument for borrowing shorter, not longer.
The core of the argument is that this isn't really about District 11 or the Transit Authority or the Zoning Board. It's about a fundamentally broken system, a system where every single agency acts like they are the only ones asking you for money. And the ultimate aggregator of all these bills, the only entity in the entire city forced to reckon with the total combined cost, is you, the taxpayer. You don't have a slick slide deck. You don't have a lobbying coalition. You don't get a seat at the planning table. You just get the tab.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, what this deep dive really reveals is the immense psychological and financial weight that uncoordinated bureaucracy places on the average household.
It's exhausting.
It is. When taxation has no unified destination, it feels less like a shared civic duty and more like a barrage of isolated financial shakedowns. But the ballot box is the one and only place where all these different silos are forced into the same room.
Right.
The voter has the immense power to apply that yardstick, to demand ruthless prioritization, simply by refusing to pay the tab until the city agrees on a destination.
And that applies to you no matter where you are listening from, even if you live 1,000 miles away from Colorado Springs. If you pull up your local ballot this November, you are going to see these exact same silos.
Oh, guaranteed.
Your local water district, your regional transit authority, your county school board, they are all going to be there, each asking for their own separate fraction of a percent, completely ignoring what the other guys are asking for.
Right.
Which leaves me with a final provocative thought to leave you with, building right off that bar tab metaphor. What if we actually changed the rules of the bar?
Ooh, I like this.
What if, instead of voting on a school bond in November and a transit tax in May, and quietly absorbing hidden regulatory fees year-round, what if a municipality was legally forced to present a single, consolidated mega bill on one single ballot?
Wow. A mega bill.
Yeah, every bond, every new tax, every regulatory fee increase, all added up into one terrifying aggregate number for the next decade.
That'd be quite a number.
It would. And if voters were forced to look at the total combined cost of all proposed civic projects simultaneously, would the sheer sticker shock paralyze all civic progress forever? Or would it finally force the exact ruthless compared to what prioritization that we've been talking about today?
That is a great question to think about.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the source material. Next time you see a ballot measure asking for the price of a cheap whiskey, we hope you'll take a step back, look at the whole tab, and ask yourself, compared to what?